Welcome everyone to the presentation today. My name is Gordon Scott. I'm the Managing Director of the CMT Program for the Market Technicians Association. And I'm giving this presentation based on the belief that most of you want to know a little bit about the CMT program. I'm also going to talk about the CMT exams, because I know that some of you who are here may have already started in on the program and actually are looking to know a few questions about CMT exam study and where you can get some help. And even if that's not you, hopefully one day it will be. So therefore, I'm going to cover both topics in this presentation. I'm going to start out, though, talking about the CMT program. I'm going to do this in a way that's a little straightforward, a little candid, a little more candid than you might be used to of hearing about this sort of thing in some other way. And I hope nobody's put off by this, but I believe that this is the heart of the information that people want to know. I mean, I get a lot of questions about the CMT program. Obviously, in my capacity, I am a natural to be asking about that, but the thing that happens is that people ask the question a whole bunch of different ways, and it seems like really underlying what they're asking are these questions. Nobody comes up and asks me this stuff, but this is what they mean. So I'm going to answer these questions because hopefully that'll really get to the heart of the matter for you. So the first question is, how hard is it? How difficult are the exams, and what all does it take, and do I have to go through a lot? Is it a hard test? Are all tests the same level of difficulty? I mean, how does it compare? And how much does it cost? What's it going to set me back? What kind of money do I got to step up and put out for this? And then in the end, is it really worth it? What can I get for all the time and money that I drop on this? What am I getting back? Well, I'm going to try to answer those questions just as straightforwardly and unsugar-coated as I can, because those are rational questions to be asking. This is a simple cost-benefit analysis. And I had to go through this myself years ago as I was a technical analysis practitioner, and then decided for myself, do I really want to get a CMT designation? Would that be of use to me? Now, at the time I was asking myself those questions, I was employed by an entity that had incentive for me to have a designation. So they said that if I would get it, they would pay my ongoing dues to the membership. So they were willing to subsidize the cost, and so I thought, oh, great. Well, let's talk about this. And then I went ahead and paid for my portion of it, and I went through. But later, there came a time where I didn't have their subsidy, and I had to make a decision: do I carry on with my association and pursuit of the CMT on my own dime, or do I just let it go at this point? Well, I obviously chose the latter path, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to me today. But more importantly, I can tell you that from my personal experience, that has paid off very big dividends for me in a variety of ways. And hopefully I'll be able to share some of each of that with you. So let's address the first question. How hard is it? Well, level 1, the first test, is very achievable. Now, I don't want to pretend like it's an easy test. Nobody gets 100% on any of these exams. But level 1 has a very high pass rate. There are, usually about 70% of all candidates do pass the exam. And it's pretty clear that those who don't pass the exam, the reason they don't pass is that they simply haven't studied deeply enough, long enough, whatever it is. They just didn't know the material. And it's not usually the case that somebody just barely, just on one tiny misinterpretation of a question doesn't pass. We actually review people on the line and make certain that there's not the chance that it was an accidental. And so there's usually a rather thick line between passing and not passing on level 1. So how to get level 1? Well, if you're somebody that's been doing technical analysis for years, then it's not going to take you as much time to study as someone who's kind of brand new to the industry. Now, a lot of people in the CMT are interested in the CMT are guys who maybe work for a bank or an investment house of some kind or a fund, and they want to differentiate themselves. They say, well, I've got a CFA, or I'm a CPA, or a CFP, or CTA, or something, but I never have enough time to actually just on my own read these books. However, if I joined up and I paid the money and I'm kind of committed and I know I'll do it, and I really want to do it, I want to have that skill and understand the value of technical analysis, which is significant, by the way. I don't know if you are not really sold on the idea of technical analysis. Please chat in. I've got a couple of fun stories to share with you if you feel like, part of the reason I'm here, Gordon, is I want you to tell me, is there really something to this whole technical analysis? I assume that most of you aren't that way. Most of you are just, no, I get it. I'm interested in technical analysis. If that's not you, though, like I say, type in a chat question and tell me, because I can speak to that in a very quick and entertaining way. But back to the how hard the exams are. Level 2 is a little bit more. And now on level 1, if you know a lot about technical analysis, you've been studying it for a while. I know of a couple of guys. I used to be in a capacity where I would help people. This is before I became part of the MTA staff. I was part of an organization where I was shepherding people to take the CMT exams and helping to make sure they stayed on track with their study and to pass the exams and so forth. And so we would monitor how much they would study, and there was a couple of guys that did it in about 20 hours of study. They just, concentrated on one book, and they kind of knew what was everywhere else, and they'd just been doing this for so long that they understood all the concepts. And it was a simple thing, because exam 1 focuses on identification and recognition of concepts and definitions and so forth. But exam 2 is now about application. It's a tougher. It's a big step up, and now you got to spend a little bit more time, because you got to make sure you got the concepts right and in good working order, and in a way that you're able to incorporate the nuances. Like, for instance, this: how many touch points on a trend line is valid? And most people will draw a trend line with just 2 points. But according to our reading list, our authors have some very specific points, which actually come from Dow theory and other methods, testing and so forth. And they will tell you 2 points is not a true trend line. It might be a support or resistance line that you can draw for your own trading purposes, but that's not what you would consider a true trend line. You got to have more than 2 touch points. So that's a small kind of nuance, and that kind of nuance is what's very important for level 2. And so because of that, and such a broad area of study, that little nuances in all those areas really make level 2 require that you put in about 40 hours, even if you're experienced. If you're not really experienced, if you just passed and you feel like you just barely passed level 1 by the skin of your teeth, and you're thinking, oh man, how am I going to, well, get started early and plan on putting in about 100 hours worth of study to make sure you thoroughly have it down, especially if that's not your day-to-day activity. So right now we've got about 8 weeks left until the exam. If you're asking yourself, okay, Gordon, one of the reasons I'm here today is that I want to know if it's too late. Can I sign up right now and make level 1? Or or even level 2 if I haven't started. If I were to register for this today, would I still have enough time to make it? Well, experience is going to play a factor. If you have some experience, if you've been looking at charts and you've been listening to people and reading and talking and studying in a variety of ways, whether professionally or for your own account or whatever capacity, if you've been doing technical analysis for quite a while, then absolutely you've got enough time. No problem. You could spend probably 3 to 4 hours a week studying for the exam between now and exam time and have a very good chance of passing that. If you're still new to it, well, there's still plenty of time. I mean, if you're between gigs right now and you got 40 hours a week you can put on this, well, obviously there's enough time. But if you're a working stiff like 63% of the workforce these days in the U.S., then you have about 6 to 8 hours that you'll have to carve out of your week somewhere during a commute or on the weekends or something that you'll want to be able to put in every week between now and exam time in order to have a realistic expectation of passing the exam. But no, it's not too late, and there are a lot of study tools on the website to help you. Level 3 is challenging. Not gonna cover that up at all. It is synthesis, analysis, and application all together. There are fewer questions, but it's a 4-hour exam, and you need every one of it. Now, about 70% pass level 1, somewhere in the mid-60s pass level 2, and about 60% pass level 3. As you can see, the majority of participants that actually take the test pass it. But at those percentages, it's also true that the majority of CMT candidates fail one of their exams somewhere along the way. Just, that's the way it goes. And it's not everybody. If you're studying, if you're diligent and you're in there, it saves you a few $100 from having to pay for the second time around. But I myself had to take the third exam twice because it's just that challenging. And studying and preparing for it is something that you shouldn't do lightly. You really want to make sure you get that. Yeah, Tom. So one question is, I have a Series 7. I'm not employed at this time. Can I still qualify and study and take the test? Yeah. You don't have to be in the biz right now. Certainly not while you're taking the tests. But if you have had in the past a certain amount of experience, then that's one of the requirements. I mean, after passing all the tests, you do have to have some time in the industry as experience in order to be able to get your CMT designation. But that doesn't have to be live while you're taking all the tests. That can be later on. So good question. So we have a little bit about the test. Let me move on to costs. How much does it cost? Well, here's the breakdown right here, and the bottom line is it's about $2,000 total over 18 months at a minimum. For me, it was 8 years. But you're also going to spend some money on study materials, books, and so forth. And depending on how clever you get about acquiring the books, and how much bargain shopping you do on Amazon, or go into your local library, or borrowing from buddies. I mean, there's a variety of ways you can get that cost down. But if you're in a hurry and you've got time to trade, or you got money to trade for time, then you'll probably end up spending $1,000 on study materials, and that is about $500 on books. But there are also online study prep courses for the CMT exams. You can take them at any level. After I failed level 3 the first time, I went through one of those the second time, and it was a tremendous help for being able to be prepared for level 3. So I plunked down $500 for that, and was happy to do so because I feel like it made the difference between passing and not passing in my case. And the the total cost, $3,000. You might look at that and say, "Oh, come on, $3,000. That's very expensive." It's actually very cheap compared to two things. Number one, compared to other professional designations. Go ahead, just check out the cost. I mean, we are a steal in terms of the value that you're getting compared to the costs that you put out. Second, the value. Just in comparison to other programs, CFA, Kaya, FRM, whatever, but also compared to what you get back from it. Now, what you get back from it starts with simple thing like access to the MTA.org website. That might not sound like much, but see, what we have are some members-only resources that are very worthwhile. We have some publications that anybody can access. There are portions of the knowledge base that anybody can get to, and there's our Journal of Technical Analysis and our CMT newsletter, which is a great study prep resource. Actually, comes with sample questions and specific articles that are written to help better understand particular facets of the various categories that are in there. Was a couple of great questions. So I'll answer those in just a second. But another thing that's really awesome is the educational web series that we do. A couple of times a month at least, sometimes more often. We have some very accomplished presenters, oftentimes luminaries in the technical analysis industry. John Murphy, John McMillan, John Bollinger, Charlie Kirkpatrick, Perry Kaufman's coming up this next week. We just had W.H.C. Bassetti. We had Martin Pring. We've had I could just go on with the people, and sometimes you look at a guy's name and you think, oh, well, who's that guy? I mean, what does he know? But you don't realize that the guy that's presenting is a major player in a multi-billion-dollar fund somewhere. And these are presentations that outside of the MTA you would typically have to pay for. They're not sales presentations about, hey, I've got a book. Let me tell you, tease you about what's in the book and tell you, hey, you got to buy it and it's cool. And these are things that these people have put together, ideas, strategies that they've been using with their funds or with the people who buy their research, and things that are proven to be good strategies. And they're just very candid. They just tell you how they work and what the main thing is, and they're open to tough questions and answers about them. So it's pretty cool, and that is just for free. Now, the value of each of those presentations in a given year, if you were to total all those up, that's probably more than half of your the amount that you're going to spend on the CMT, but you get that every year, and that's only the beginning. This is the small value in terms of educational over-the-web delivered materials. We also have podcasts and a few other things. But the big value is the association that you have, being part of a chapter and being part of a network of guys who you can rub shoulders with and interact with, and especially come to the symposium with. We have an annual symposium, and sometimes we do regional symposiums, which are, we did one in Dallas and one in Toronto this past year. And they're great, just little one-day events, but they bring together people who are similarly engaged, and others who are interested in the program, but they're not MTA members or CMTs. They're kind of interested to see what it is, but they're working for a fund or a bank or something, and so they're great networking resources. And so if you're looking to find contacts, because, a job in the financial service industry that's a really good job, it's not like you find it on monster.com. You know what I'm saying? If it's that good of a job, it's not going to be out there on a neon sign. it's going to be who you know. How do you find it? Well, these people, they kind of put up on their website and had so many applicants, they took it down after 2 days. Or, they had 3 applicants, all word of mouth referral, and they interviewed them. And, it's that kind of a job, right? Nobody gets a job on the trading floor, even still today, even though, not as much money in that job as it used to be. But, nobody gets a job on the trading floor even today without knowing somebody. Well, that job isn't advertised, right? Well, jobs that you can get with the CMT are kind of that way. They're not advertised. There are some that are just flat out advertised as CMT jobs, but really there are a wide variety of jobs for which the CMT differentiates you, not is not the sole qualifier for it. There might be a job that's CFA required, MBA plus, and they won't mention the CMT. But then when you sit down, if you have your CFA already, when you sit down at that interview and you say, I've got a CMT, then all of a sudden the eyebrows go up. Oh, you're different from everybody else I've been talking to. You have a skill that our guys don't have, and you have proven that you are interested in the actual workings of the market, and that knowledge is very valuable to us. So the CMT designation, I can tell you the last 3 actual jobs that I had to interview for, not including the MTA staff job, although that certainly was important, but the 3 before that where I actually was doing work, having the CMT designation made all the difference in the world. I mean, that wasn't the skill that I was interviewing with, but when the interviewer saw it, they said, well, tell us about that. One case, they had never heard of the CMT, but then they did a quick search of the website and said, wow, we need this guy. So it was, it has been a tremendous value to me to be able to have this. A couple of questions right here. Does personal trading experience count towards member status? I mean, the answer is no, it doesn't, unfortunately, because I like to think of the personal trading status is important, but the CMT is meant to imply that that you've done a little more. Now, you don't have to trade other people's money. If you have traded other people's money, that counts, even in a non-industrial, right? If you traded on behalf of somebody else, even unlicensed, that still would count. But the other thing too is if you're publishing research, because not all technicians are traders or money managers or portfolio managers. A lot of them are just research professionals. So if you're writing research that you're publishing that other people are reading, a significant amount of other people are reading, especially if you're getting paid for that research, but not necessarily. So imagine you're doing your own trading and you're publishing to people who are in the business, and they're not paying you, but they depend or rely and ask you for their reports, and you can demonstrate, yeah, I've been publishing this, and these people have been reading it for X period of time. That counts. So if you're a publisher of a newsletter or of some kind of research nowadays, that definition is wide open. A blog, right? So so there's that. Next question. For those who are independent traders and interested in seeking employment with a bank or trading firm, can passing the CMT be a way to demonstrate aptitude without the experience of working for such a firm? Yes, it absolutely can. Can someone take the test and then seek employment and the sponsorship required to achieve the CMT certification? Yeah, you can't get the CMT certification, but going to an employer and saying, I have passed all 3 levels of the CMT, in order for me to get the CMT, I just need professional work experience. But I have the skills. I've traded. I've passed all the tests and so forth. It's very conceivable that entity, were they willing to bring you on, would have a great incentive to do so, because they'd say, oh, nice, you're going to become a CMT and we don't have to pay anything for it. You already done it. You basically put yourself through on-the-job training before getting on the job, and now all we have to do is let you have a little time and pay your dues. Score. We love that, right? That's the way that would go down. On the website, it says you must be gainfully employed in a professional analytic investment management capacity and must be regularly engaged as a capacity at the time of successfully passing all 3 levels of the exam. So you must be employed in the above capacity before I can take? No. I think that was meant to say that you have to be employed at the time you're seeking certification. I would say this, that there's a requirement of time. There's 3 years, right? So if you have been, it doesn't have to be continuous. It could be 2 years in the past, and then you can be out of it, and then you can be back into it for a year. But then there's 3 years, and so now you're taking your last test, right? So if you're taking the last test and you're employed, then you're good to go. If you're taking the last test and you're not employed, well, hopefully you've already had 3 years before, and that you're seeking to get back in, because we're not going to we're going to say that somebody that is a CMT but they're between jobs. I mean, somebody that's qualified to be a CMT but is between jobs can't get it. Now, I also got to point out that the approval of that is done by a committee. It's not a computer somewhere. There's actually a committee that reviews your application after you pass the test, and then there are, of course, 3 other CMTs who are sponsors, people who will vouch for you. And you may not, in fact, 2 of them, at least you're not supposed to know from, like, your workplace or something. And so you go to them and say, hey, I've got my research, you want to review it, or my track record and my experience. And so they review it. And so then the sponsorship committee may go to the admissions committee may, in researching your case, go ask your sponsors and say, well, what do you think? Is this person legit? I mean, what we want is the ability for the CMT to mean something in the financial services world more than just this guy knows how to take a good test, right? So it's a designation of skill, and that's the idea. So if you have a way to prove I've got the skill, I've used it in professional capacities, then the admissions committee can take all of that into account and work with you. Okay. I have worked in a company which is engaged in selling technical analysis software. We were in sales and support. Does this count? Well, it would depend. It would depend on how much you're actually using the knowledge of that. I mean, one of the things that technical analysis companies, software companies do, like, let's say, I can just think of this as, one of our CMT members is Stan Dash, and he works for TradeStation. And what he does is he does presentations for people on the software. Now, I'm not sure, but I don't think Stan trades for anybody. He's not managing other people's money. He's working for TradeStation. And you'll see him at the booth at Traders Expo. Stan's a great guy. And he's sitting for his level 3 exam, and he's not going to have any problem getting the admissions committee to accept the idea that he's in the biz and it's legit. And, well, but what he's been doing is doing presentations for software, right? So that's an example. If that's your capacity, great. That's going to work, because that's kind of like published research, and in order for you to stand up in front of people and tell people about technical analysis, you got to be legit. But if what you're doing is you're on the phone and you're repeating a canned pitch, so that is the kind of thing that the admissions committee would look at. Just how substantial is it? Are you doing technical analysis? Do you know the discipline, or do you just know the software? And to the extent that you can make yourself clear on the difference, then, okay. So I think I've answered the questions that have been put up so far. Good questions. Thank you for asking them, and please keep them coming if you have more. Let's see. The next slide I have is about the benefit. Is it worth it? It's totally worth it. Okay, now I've talked a little bit about that. Let me go through my own personal experience. See, when I worked for this company, who was a technical analysis provider, and I was in the capacity of a newsletter publisher for them, and we had 30,000 readers following the things that we wrote. This company was, we want to have those letters at the end of your name. Well, after a while, I decided to go independent, but it was in the middle of my work with them and going through the program. And so then I had to make a decision, gosh, do I start paying for this myself? And I decided, I will. I want to. And as I did, I always had this question nagging me, am I going to get my return on investment? Am I going to get my money back from this? And every year I would then have to make the decision about, do I re-up my dues and do I plunk down a couple of grand to fly to New York? I live out here now, but back then I was Midwestern state, and do I fly out, and the hotels are expensive, and it's a couple of grand for the symposium and the hotels and everything, and is that worth it? And without fail, within a couple of months, the networking connections I'd made, the ideas I had heard, more than paid back the money I was spending on every event that I was connected with. And it was just stunning to me how valuable it was on a consistent basis. And so I'm a big fan, of course, of the MTA and its organization, and what you get back from it. It doesn't come necessarily in all the same way. I know plenty of other guys who've gotten benefit and had similar experiences to me, but for different reasons, right? They have a slightly different business or a much different business. But in any event, it's the connection with other skilled professionals, learning what they have to tell about. And I've been so appreciative of the fact that the guys that are part of this craft, they just love the craft. They come and they share, and there's not a lot of gamesmanship associated with, I'm going to tell everybody this one thing so that when I go back home, my algos are going to just rake everybody else over the coals. It's not that way. Most of these guys comprehend that the study of technical analysis is broad enough that, hey, there's room for everybody. And while there are proprietary things that are not shared, there are a lot of great innovative ideas that are shared and that you never heard before. I remember going and hearing two of my very favorite associates in the organization present on volatility studies that they had done. I had never thought to look at the market that way before, and it was original research that nobody else had done before. And as I listened to it, I thought, that gives me an idea. I mean, I can't duplicate their research. It's proprietary research, but I could employ something in my own trading and investing activities based on what I've heard here, and that has become an important staple of what I still do today. It's just a very valuable tool for me, and I heard it here. So I'm like I say, I'm a big fan. I think it's totally worth it. Now I'm going to talk about the exam a little bit. I want to mention the exam because some people are in the midst of it. Oh, wait, here we go. There's a couple of questions I missed. One question: I want you to appraise about local chapters. For example, Atlanta. I tried in the past to visit, but unsuccessful. So now some local chapters are a lot more active than others. And an active local chapter is a massively valuable resource. In New York, of course, there's a very fun, very fabulous local chapter that meets every month, and they meet at the top of the Thomson Reuters building down there in Times Square. And so it's this great venue, and we get great speakers. And we had the head of City Forex, talking about some of his outlooks and point of view and trading techniques, and man, it's just stuff like that every month. And meanwhile, the head of the local chapter, J.C. Peretz, great guy, fun guy, and he is becoming quite the celebrity in terms of social media stock information, stock alert information, and he's there. You just walk up, shake his hand, talk with him, find out whatever you want to about what he's doing. And what he's doing, he says, social media and the CMT are two of the things that have advanced my career more than anything else. So it was really great. But that's New York. Boston has a nice active one, and I think Chicago and Dallas have active chapters, and some places aren't quite as active. But the thing that gets them active is people like yourself showing interest in going. And Seattle has a really great chapter. Tom McClellan, Ed Carlson, great guys. They show up. And others. It's always a great time. I've been working for a proprietary trading firm for 6 years. Would that count, Kevin? Yes, that would count. Some knowledge on study materials is book adequate. Yeah, it depends on if what you're asking is just reading the books adequate for passing the test. In theory, it is. I would say most people who pass the exams, though, aren't just book readers. It's because they're practicing things. The CMT body of knowledge is listed on the website. What each of the reading assignments are covered there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as I go through the exam stuff here in the next few minutes. But I should point out that I'm sorry, I'm a terrible multitasker. I'm looking ahead at these other questions. So give me a second. I should point out that the things that you learn that are covered in the books are meant to not only be learned from the books, but to be learned from doing. If you can just learn them straight out of the books, that'll be fine. But I think that if you're doing them too, even if you're just practicing with a paper trading account while you're reading the books, then you're going to get a lot more out of those concepts and be able to do that. Now, meanwhile, if you're not an industrial strength trader, but you are trading somebody else's money, a friends and family account or something, that's going to help you qualify. So that kind of thing is enough to give you experience that you can talk to somebody else about. Are practice tests available? Yes. On the website on mta.org, there is. Thank you for answering. Maybe if you could, do you have the ability to provide a link in there to send to them? That'd be terrific. Do you happen to know of any future dates which the exams will be offered? They're given usually every May and every October. The next one coming up, we have to schedule them, and it looks like we're looking at the last week of October for the fall administration. Does the CMT program cover things like Renko bars, monkey bars, point and figure? Well, I would say Renko bars and monkey bars less so. But point and figure, yes, absolutely. Point and figure is a heavy staple, in fact, of all three levels of exam right now. How would I find out how large of a CMT population is in different countries? I think the best thing to do would be to email one of our marketing specialists who works with that data on a frequent basis. And I will give you his email address here. It is, let me see if I can show a whiteboard so I can just write that up. Look up here, and it is very simple. Matthew at org. All right, so if you email Matthew at mta.org and actually ask him that question, let him know, hey, I'm interested, and I just want to know what we're looking at for this country or that country, or then he can probably tell you the answer. And I can't remember actually if it's Matthew with one T or two, but I think it's a two. So there we go. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew Remy can be contacted at Matthew, and he would answer that question for you. All right. Let me go back to my slides there. Thank you for those questions. Great questions. Now let me talk to you about the exams. I want to go through a categorical, or well, sorry, what I'm about to give you now is based on a couple of activities we do, a category review and an item review. This is my day-to-day job, is looking over the events of the test or data from the test. And from that data, I've come across some observations that will answer these three questions. What day is best to take the exams? Okay, the answer to that question is the day that you are best prepared to take it. Now, we'll talk about these other two questions too. What category should I study most, and can I gain any special advantage with a tactical study plan? And so first, let's talk about the day of the exam. See, what it turns out to be is that being well prepared is the best solution. Get in your full 40 hours of study at least if you're experienced. If you're not experienced, you're going to need more. Don't procrastinate your preparation. Nobody gets 100% of the exams, so you know they're not cheesy exams. They're significant. If you've taken a Series 7, for example, you know the level of exam we're talking about. In some ways, I found Level 1 easier than the Series 7 exam because, I worked with, on a day-to-day basis, more of what was on Level 1 than what was on the Series 7. But but others find that the Series 7 is easier than the Level 1. I would say they're comparable. Level 2 is a good bit harder than a Series 7, or certainly much harder than the Series 65 or Series 6 exams. And Level 3 is as we say, challenging. So the key here is do not procrastinate your preparation. What happens is that you look at the days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Friday test takers tend to do better. My explanation for this is not that Friday people are somehow, there's the tests get easier on Friday. It is that those are the people that signed up early, got their preparation, were committed to it, and took the test and studied for it and did everything on time. People that do it on Saturday, some of them are doing that too, but there are more people who sign up on Saturday that do something kind of silly like, I don't have time to study, but I'll just take Thursday and Friday off of work, and I'll take the test on Saturday, and I'll spend all 3 days studying 10 hours a day. That ought to be enough, and I'll cram it in and do that. There's a couple or some variation of that theme, right? A couple of people like that every year, and it shows up. The Saturday data has a lower percentage of performance, not to mention passing, than Friday. Now, Thursday isn't as bad as Saturday, but it's also lower. And so what do we say about Thursday? Well, part of it is, they waited so long that all Friday and Saturday slots were taken up, and all they could get was Thursday. Others, maybe that it just came on too early. They didn't get enough study in. But as I say, it's just a slight difference. So although Friday test takers appear to have an edge, what it really boils down to is that people who are more prepared have the obvious and most reliable edge. Meanwhile, in the Level 1 exam, because the test is mostly about the identification and definition of topics, there's a lot of overlap, and the books have excellent reinforcement between the three major texts, technical analysis of stock trends, 9th edition, 10th edition works also, by the way. You don't need to have the 9th edition only. And right now, because everybody's shopping for it, it's a little hard to come by. It's pricey as a used book. So just get the 10th edition. It works just fine for Edwards and McGee. And then Charles Kirkpatrick and Julie Dahlquist's book, Technical Analysis, the Complete Resource for Financial Technicians. And Technical Analysis Explained by Martin Pring. All three of these cover a lot of the same territory. And I think of the three of them, the most important is Kirkpatrick and Dahlquist, because that's the one most often referenced by the test writers, test question writers. I just noticed that. So it's if there's one that stands out head and shoulders above the three, it would be that one. The Duplessis book, that is the Definitive Guide to Point and Figure edition, is critical for the point and figure charts. There aren't that many point and figure questions on level 1. There are more on level 2, and the point count goes up even more on level 3. You can't pass the exams on level 2 and 3 without knowing, properly knowing point and figure charts. And the tests are written based on the way Duplessis has them written, which is important because other texts differ. And so you want to keep that in mind. The Duplessis text will teach you the way that the tests expect you to be able to do point and figure. So that's pretty important to know, especially for level 1. Level 2, there are 10 categories of topics in level 2. And I did a bit of a quick analysis. In fact, you can kind of see this for yourself on the body of knowledge page on the CMT website, or on the MTA website under the About the CMT Program. There's a little link to a page called Body of Knowledge. And when you go there, it has a full breakdown of all the 10 categories of the question topics. How many questions are in each one? And I looked at the scores and found that these areas are the ones that are typically underperformed. The people kind of miss these. Construction, there aren't that many. Trend analysis and chart pattern analysis, those represent about 1/5 of the exam, a little less than 1/5 of the exam in each case. Confirmation also is about that same amount. The difference between confirmation, though, and trend analysis and chart pattern analysis is that there are several chapters in several different texts about the trend analysis and chart pattern analysis. There's just a lot to cover. The confirmation is largely only found in one place. Confirmation includes these subtopics: volume, plotting the volume and interpreting the volume, indexes and oscillators designed to use with volume confirmations, things like money flow index, or what's the other one I'm thinking of? Well, I've got them down here: indicators of market trend, and the AD line, the on-balance volume, the tricks, the trend. And it's also about open interest. It's also about price confirmation and momentum, and price confirmation of existing patterns seen on the screen. Well, confirmation can be studied much more efficiently than those other areas. So if there's a tactical advantage on level 2, it's confirmation. Now, the confirmation is on level 1 also. So, I mean, but I don't think there are quite as many questions to confirmation on level 1 as there are on level 2. So, but none of this, if you study this at level 1, it's not going to be wasted, but it is critical to study this at level 2. And that is, you should study Kirkpatrick and Dahlquist chapter 18 as the only chapter specifically designated for confirmation. I mean, it's about 20, 25 pages, I think. It's not that long. And yet it accounts for 17% of the questions on, plus or minus 2, depending on how the computer pulls them out of the pool, right? But 17% of the questions on your level 3 exam. So that's a key area to make sure that you get, and that you don't overlook it. Some people gloss that chapter and do so to their detriment, because 17% of the points from that short little reading. You can also consider Kirkpatrick and Dahlquist's 15 and 17, and Steve Nissen's Candlestick book has chapters 3, 4, 6, and 7, and Martin Pring's book Technical Analysis Explained, chapters 2 and 16. But these are supplemental. These are not about confirmation. All these other chapters have confirmation mentioned along the way. And so when you're reading those chapters, you're paying attention and pricking up your ears, so to speak, for topics on confirmation. But really, it's just the one chapter, very straightforward, about confirmation, and it has a very high value in your ability to pass the test. Is Tom Dorsey recognized for point and figure? Our one author for point and figure is Jeremy Duplessis. But to the extent that author writes in the same way as Jeremy, then what you'd be learning would be adequate. I don't know about his material, and so I can't vouch for the similarity or dissimilarity. It's on the reading list. You're good. If anything else, you're going to take a risk. Another question. Aside from the recommended reading list, are there official CMT exam study guides? We are in the process of building a curriculum similar to other professional societies' curriculums, and so we want that, but we don't actually have that right now. We don't have specific study guides. There are study guides for some of the books. Martin Pring has his own study guide for the 4th edition. As an example, you could use that to help you with your studies. But the newsletters are the next closest thing. The newsletters talk about specific areas of focus, and each one gives a sample exam. And we have all the back issues of the newsletters are on our website. And Shane, if you're there, could you confirm whether or not those are available to the public or if that's a members-only area? I can't remember. I thought it was available to the public. We have 8 volumes. We're working on our 9th one now. So amongst all of those is a tremendous resource of practice questions. And all right, so that's an advantage you can gain on level 2. Because confirmation is just all too easy to overlook. And now on level 3 exam, this test also has 10 categories of questions topics. Ethics, it's important to know, have changed. And ethics is important because you have to do well enough on ethics that there are only 6 ethics questions, but if you don't get at least 4 of them right, you don't pass the exam regardless of how else you do. So ethics becomes a very important part of study, one that you shouldn't wait until the last second. And but the test, it's a 4-hour test on the level 3. There are 170 questions on level 2, 120 on level 1, 170 on level 2, but on level 3, there's less than that. There's only about 70 questions. So it's important because, there we go, yes, thanks. Check out the chat for links to the newsletter and practice exams. And also the syllabus. Thank you very much, Shane. Excellent. In the chat box, good links. If you're listening to the recording of this and you can't see the chat box or you don't have the ability to link to them, then just go to mta.org and look specifically for the practice exams in the about the CMT area. Yeah. All right. So as I was saying, though, about these exams, the level 3 exam has 240 points available to it, but it only has about 60 individual question items. And so it's very, very important that you look at how many points are allotted each question, because that's how many minutes that there's only 240 minutes for the exam, so however many minutes for each test, that's what I'm trying to say, for each test question. The test question says, this test question is worth 10 points, then what you do is you spend no more then 10 minutes on it, and you know you're staying on track. If it takes you 15 minutes, then you know you've got to short the other areas somewhere. So that's an important thing to be aware of, and it's very important to look at the sample exam so you can get an idea of what those point values are likely to be. And a strategy for studying, particularly on the level 3 exam, is to study what you don't know. There are major areas, Elliott wave as an example, Dow theory, strategies, trading strategies from technical analysis, candlesticks, and market breadth and sentiment. I mean, whichever of these topics you don't work with on a daily basis, that's the thing you should be studying. Yeah, that's absolutely what you would need to do for level 3 exam. Okay. Now, with that being said, we've just got a couple of minutes here for questions. If you have any additional questions, you're welcome to ask them, chat them in. But I hope this has been valuable information for you. I'd be grateful for any feedback you want to leave on whether or not you think this has been good information, so that I know in future whether these presentations do a good job of answering your questions. And I hope to see and meet some of you in person as you take the exams, join the association, attend the symposiums or chapter meetings, and look forward to getting a chance to actually meet you. So here's a question. Theoretically, one could gain their CMT in about 1.5 years. Yes. If you've got some experience and you've been in the business and you meet the professional requirement and you just step in and do your exams, bang, 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 and you put in the required amount of study, then absolutely, you'd have it in a 1.5 years. Thank you, Amir, for the feedback. Does personal broking business count? If it's a broking business where if you're actually brokering on behalf of others, well, as a proprietary trader, that would count. I mean, you become a broker-dealer to be a prop trader, but a prop trader is a little bit different. If you're working on a prop trading desk, even if you're trading your own account, because you're in the capacity of a prop trader and you're a licensed Series 7, then I believe I believe the admissions committee is going to count that. Yeah, if you're working for a broker, that'll count as well, regardless of what capacity you worked with them for. And if you have been, you can just say it this way: if you've ever been doing technical analysis in such a way that you're talking to other people about it and they're benefiting from what you're saying, and you repeatedly do that, then that works too. That would count. Is it possible to sit for exam 1 and 2 in the same weekend? No, it is not. This person replies, I was a sub-broker. That's still okay. That's still okay. You're working for a brokerage and a sub-broker. That would still, you'd still get by with that. You can't take more than one exam in one sitting, in one administration. So unfortunately, you do got to wait 6 months in between to be able to take the next one. Yeah. All right, everyone. I appreciate your time and attendance, and just want to wish you a great weekend and good luck in studying for those CMT exams.